Hey guys. So today I want to talk to you about following your passion. I own a bookstore. I've owned a bookstore for 2 years. I've been in books for 5 years. Books itself, books themselves, I'm not incredibly passionate about, but I am passionate about the meaning that bookstores have to me because bookstores, I believe, help ground a community. Bookstores provide books for the community, and most people who come in there are very passionate about books. Kids come in and buy books to read. And I just like education. I do like people doing things that slow them down a bit, that ground them, that give them kind of like a sustained interest and sustained happiness. And books, I think, are a great way to do that. So I find meaning in that. I do find meaning in having my own business and employing people, all that. So I feel like, in a broad stroke, I'm living out my passion. So if you want to try to follow your passion or try to pursue your passion, I think the first thing you need to make sure that you're doing is that you lead a varied life. That way you kind of figure out what is worth pursuing. If I ask you right now to make a list of your 10 favorite things to do and your least 10 favorite things to do, that list is completely based on your experience. I'm sure there's an infinite amount of experience you can have out in the world. So if you were able to go out and do, let's say you were able to travel the world, you're able to do all these different things. That list of 10 things would change a lot. Your number one might drop down to number 10 by the time you do a bunch of things. I spent some time doing construction. I spent some time doing pastoral work. I've done some crafting things like candles, things like that. I'm about to, even after having this business, I'm about to do some real estate stuff. So your passions change and they evolve, but you have to get out into the world and experience some things to kind of know what you're truly passionate about. And that's what I think we need to inspire young people to do, but old people alike, is figure out what you're passionate about, figure out maybe a few of your different passions, and then kind of the next step, I believe, is to, in your free time, pursue your passion as a hobby. And really, what I'm talking about today is how you can possibly make your passion your job. And that's a wonderful thing. Not that it's not a whole lot of work, but obviously you can find more meaning in the work because it's something that you like to do, at least as a whole, and you can see the meaning of, okay, if I do this one repetitive thing in isolation that I would hate over and over and over again, I see what it will bring to my business or to my passion. So I can find meaning in that, and I'll push through it and get through it. So it's completely different than working for a business that you maybe don't believe the same things. You don't have the same value structure, so you're not really passionate about what you do. Now, I just did a video the other day about working for God, finding a meaning in God. So there's no circumstances in which you shouldn't have joy in your work because you're doing it under God. But to go one step further, I think, in finding fulfillment would be to do work for God that you enjoy the work itself as well. There's no reason that we can't have that, right? We don't need to torture ourselves and say, I need to just stick with this because I'm doing it for God, even though I hate it. It's like God puts certain desires in our heart, I believe, for a reason. God wants us to be creative, just like He's creative. So don't punish yourself staying somewhere. But also, just like I said in the other video, don't leave something just because you're unhappy. Because we should be able to have joy in our work from God, and you're going to jump from thing to thing if you leave it because you're unhappy. Understand the difference there, right? Okay. So start your passion as a hobby, and this could be a side business. There's going to be a lot of things that you need to learn, and you don't need to go into debt with your passion. And I'll just go ahead and be honest with you. There's not a clear path for all passions to become a career for you, and they don't have to. So, and some passions are break-even type jobs, and if it's truly a passion for you, then you'll find the meaning in even that. If I just get to do this in my free time and I get to share that with the world some way somehow, then that makes me happy and that makes me fulfilled. A wonderful thing. But if you want to give your passion kind of a chance to kind of supplant your career and then eventually become your career, then it's going to take a little while. It's going to take a lot of work. You might have your 9 to 5 job right now, but you're going to have to, from 5:30 to 9:30, 5:30 to 10, or the weekend days, you need to put in a lot of work, working on your craft, freelancing, doing whatever you need to do. Whether if you have photography, you need to be trying to get some jobs. You need to be maybe finding some apps you can post some things on, seeing if you can make some sales. If you're crafty, you need to be working on that. You need to diversify yourself really, really well. If you're serious about this, the groundwork that you're going to do is going to be the most important thing. Like with my bookstore, I monetize things in the store. I sell things online. I trade things with other bookstores. I have 5 or 6 different ways that I advertise. Like as many of these things that you can add on that are synergistic to your business, the higher the probability that you'll be successful and successful long term, and you'll have some resilience to variation and market swings and things like that. So if you're really serious about pursuing your passion as even a part-time job, if you can put in the legwork of looking at all the different ways that you can monetize your passion and start with the one that's the best, that has the highest amount of leverage for your time. Okay, I can do this, and I can sell it here, or I can add my inventory to these websites. I can store these things in my shed, and I can easily get to this many amount of items. And I've tested it enough to see, okay, I have 20 items on here. I'm selling about 2 items a week. So if I can have enough variation in my product, and I have 200 items, maybe I'll sell, that many more items a week, and so on and so forth. And then what's not selling here, maybe I can move into an antique mall. And at the same time, I'm going to try to start a social media page with this. And again, don't do all these things at once, but as you have idle time, you need to be adding layer upon layer upon layer onto this, so that you have tons and tons of ways to win. It's going to be the only way that it's going to work for you and work for you long term and increase your chances. You got to increase your chances. You have to hustle, and there's a chance you might even have some level of immediate success, but don't let that get in the way of you adding on these layers as well, because you want to be as successful as possible. But by all means, if one thing takes off, lean into that. Don't feel like you have to do 20 different things. If one thing's working really well, hammer that down, and then diversify into the next. But while that's working, you make your money, get your savings, and then begin to diversify a little bit. So hopefully that's some practical advice for you guys. But you need to think again, if you want to turn your hobby into a job, you need to do it in your free time. And then, as most people would advise, when you get ready to potentially quit your job, you do need to have some savings. 6 months of savings is great, but you at least need to have the ability to say, okay, if I don't get another paycheck from a job for a while, I'm okay. And really, in your part time, if you really grind this out and you work, you know, 20, 25 hours a week, then hopefully you should get your income with this, where you can either go down to a part-time job and then pursue your passion more full-time, flip the hours where you're doing your passion most of the time and then fitting in a job. But stair-step your way into this. Don't be crazy. There's no magical formula for kind of jumping out of the plane prematurely and that increasing your chances of this working. That's not how this works. So it's not an act of faith to say I don't have a plan, but I'm just going to stop what I'm doing and proceed. That's a recipe for disaster, my friend. So think this through. That's the issue that you can make with your passion sometimes, is that you cannot be logical. You need to slow this down. Slow this down. Like I said, put in the legwork. Watch some videos and see how people are monetizing their passion, and start those steps. And you may even need to refine your craft. You may not be up to the level with what you're doing, or you can actually monetize it yet, and that's okay. And honestly, you ask yourself the question: can I get good enough? And if I can, what steps do I need to do? Do I need to take a course? And again, courses you can watch these on YouTube and learn a lot. But in short, there will also be times where once your passion becomes a job, it's not going to feel like a passion anymore. But you have to fight through those periods. That usually means you're just a little bit underwater, and you're having to do a lot of the parts of your job. You're having to do a lot of parts of your passion that you maybe don't like. Sometimes we like the A, B, C, D part, not the E part of the job, and you're gonna have to get good at going all the way through and not procrastinating and making a finished product, and that's not always easy. But if your passion does become work, just again, I believe if you can work through that phase and get to where your inputs and your outputs are good, of okay, I'm making this, and it actually is selling, or actually am making money, or I am actually getting jobs or getting freelance work, then once you start getting the money and you can actually make your own schedule and all that, it's going to get better. But there will be a grind phase to this. It's going to feel a whole lot like work, and you may be working a lot more hours than you've ever worked before. That's the beauty of carving your own path, is you're actually having to carve your own path, and it's not going to be easy. I worked 7 days a week forever, and I still work 7 days a week often. But it's because I'm sustaining a business as I continue to grow a business. So I am constantly kind of examining the landscape to see how I can make my business better and how I can hire more people to scale it, and working on the next phase as I work on this phase. It's not easy, guys. It is not easy. You have to make sure you don't neglect family or your spiritual life and all those things. But one of my favorite recent quotes that I've heard is, it takes almost as much energy to do a small thing well as a big thing well. So with your passion, start small, but have a long-term vision too of what it could be if you stuck to this. Another amazing quote, guys, is we often overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do in 5 years. So get some vision and then slow it down and look at the practical steps of, okay, before I just start doing a bunch of work, let me figure out what's the most effective route and put my effort into that. And what's my next step? What's my next step? What's my next step? Don't set up a business yet. My advice. Again, I'm not a lawyer or anything like that, but don't set up an LLC and all this until you get a plan and you are sure that your product can sell and all that, because you're going to be responsible for submitting all kinds of forms and all kinds of things without actually making any money yet. Make sure this is going to work for you. Start doing all that. Don't get overly ambitious. Be super type A and cross every I and dot every T, and then quit in 2 months and be out all this money and still have to file taxes and all this stuff. And be level-headed. Don't let your emotions get in the way of this. But God bless you all. I think that we're all called to be creative to some degree, and I think we're most alive when we do fulfill our passions, when we pursue those things, and we get to kind of reap the fruit of our labor. Good luck to you, and work very hard. That's my advice to you. Work very, very hard, and work smart as well. God bless you, and until next time.